Good morning, everybody. I am checking everything, making sure things are going right. I hope we're having a wonderful day. It is, wow, very sunny in the mid 70s here in the Atlanta area. So it's going to be another gorgeous day. Right now is the last day of the East Cobb Georgia Celebrates Quilts quilt show. It's around the corner from me at the Cobb County Civic Center, and yeah, it's been exciting there because I don't know how many of y'all have heard this. Wednesday morning there was an accident there. It was a case of wrong foot and all of that, but somebody went through the front door of the Cobb County Civic Center in their van. Nobody was hurt. The person who was involved in it was fine. There was nobody near there. The thing that prevented them from going down to where the quilts were was basically a pylon. So thank goodness for pylons. Everything is structurally sound and everything is fine. So we did get to have the awards show on Wednesday night, and there were gorgeous quilts out there that won awards. I got a little bit of a pre-show to look at the quilts and stuff on Wednesday evening, and then on this afternoon after the live, I'm going to head out there and get more pictures so I can share some of these awesome quilts with y'all. So it's very exciting. It was definitely exciting to see my quilt hanging in a show and everything. And apparently, I have a coworker that's heading there this afternoon. And basically, yeah, it's just going to be a fun, busy day. Who is here? We have Sue, who claims to be on time today. I told you, Sue, any time is on time. Elaine is here, and yeah, she heard about the accident too. Nobody was hurt. Scrunchins is here. Good morning, and good morning, sweet granny. Elsa says good morning, and it is wet and cold in Alberta, Canada. I'm halfway offended that you put your temperature in Fahrenheit, but also appreciate the fact that you put your temperature in Fahrenheit because I'm still not good in the conversions. Jeannie is here. Charlotte is here. My buddy Amy is here. Good morning, Amy. I saw some of her quilts at the show as well. She had some gorgeous ones in there. Scrunchin says Nightbot is very presumptuous. Yeah, a little bit presumptuous, but you know, it happens. Good morning, Jackie. So yeah, we've got a pretty good crowd, even though I've heard there's like 72 different live streams happening right now. We are going to be finishing the penny candy table runner, at least finishing the top. So what I did for my homework is I cut all of the backs off from the stitch and flip, and I laid everything else out, or laid all the blocks out so that I knew that I was going to be happy with the layout. The really cool thing about spinning your backings like this is if you like the placement and your seams don't nest, you just rotate it and then they will nest. So let me get this back into position. So I ended up spending more time than I probably should have just rotating everything. It's perfectly fine when there's no directionality. If you do have directional, you may have to repress your seams so they go the opposite direction, so that they go into the direction that you want them to. But yeah, everything looks fine. I made sure everything is nesting, so I have everything in a pile for me to start sewing. And because it is essentially a one row block, I laid them out exactly like this. And I just picked them up in pairs. So I picked up these two, then these two, then these two, so that they're all in a pile like this. So I'm going to be sewing, I'm going to column each row, each column together. And then after everything is done, I will have basically one giant web, and then I can sew them together to get the individual rows. It'll probably be a little bit clearer whenever I start sewing so you can see it, but I just want to give you a little bit of what's in your mind as to what is going on. The pattern for anybody who is interested is both in the description, and I am asking the Nightbot to provide the link as well. Good morning, Vicky, who says hi, Russ, and everybody else. So it's a Villarosa pattern. Last week, in about an hour's time, actually it was less than an hour's time, we got all of the blocks snowballed, and because you're only snowballing two sides. In that video, I gave a little bit of a couple tricks on how to make sure your snowballs come out as close to perfect as possible, especially like if you're not comfortable with snowballing. And then I also suggested to make both of your seams go in the same direction, so they're both pointing downwards, in order to basically help make sure everything nests as well as you can. So I have two blocks here, and this one is going this way, that one is going that way, so when you line them up together, they nest perfectly. So that is my plan for putting them together. And I'm going to have to open up my stuff just to make sure that I have these blocks going back together correctly, because I have everything lying on the fact that everything should be lined up correctly now. And then I move things and I'm like, Good morning, Tamla. Good morning, Donnell, who has been on live since 8 o'clock this morning. She was on with Sean this morning, then she had her own live, and now she's over here. Jackie says it's already hot, 89 degrees, on its way up to 109. Yeah, it's a dry heat. I call shenanigans. So let's start with some of the sewing. I visited a friend in Phoenix. It was middle or end of April one year, a number of years ago. And at one point his car read 113. Now granted, it had been sitting in the sun in a parking lot, so I know that's not the real temperature, but it's still a ridiculous temperature. I'm also starting to play bobbin chicken, because I've got a little bit, we'll see how far I can get with sewing. Donnell is apparently trying to take over Nightbot's job. Thank you very much, Donnell. So, how is everybody doing? Anything exciting going on with anybody? Any fun projects we're working on? I don't have anything overly exciting, except, like I said, I'm going to the quilt show after the live. And then I get to pick up my quilt, and apparently the judges form, because, you know, it is a judged show. So I get to see What very impressive judges thought about my quilt. Donnell says she's sleepy. Well, you had to get up super early for Sean. I'm impressed at anybody who could handle, you know, getting up earlier than their normal time zones. I mean, I'm normally awake by the time Sean goes live because I mean, it's either I'm just in or just out of the shower by the time Sean is going live. So I get to say hi and everything before I take Riley. But on the days that he has invited me on with him, it has been rough because I got to get up like half an hour plus earlier just so that I can make sure Riley is settled and around the neighborhood before the live starts. Charlotte says 84 in Texas, heading for 100. Wish it was a dry heat. Yeah, it has been muggy here the past couple days. I was uncertain of the dress code for the award show, so I put on jeans and a polo, and I was sweating like crazy because, they couldn't really do too much for air conditioning because there was a giant hole in the window. Now, when I say it was a giant hole, it really wasn't that big of a hole because they had finally gotten plywood over it. But the building had been open for most of the day like that, so it was muggy up there. Wasn't really thrilled. It was interesting seeing, like I said, seeing the people who won stuff, and we got pictures of their quilts before we got to go down and see them in person. So we got to see some of them. I have a little bit of a hot take on the award show, but I'm going to wait for a whole video on the East Cobb show because I want to do a video kind of like comparing that to QuiltCon, since I have been to QuiltCon and now this show, and this is the first time I've had a quilt in any type of a judged show. So I want to give like a whole video of my experiences, my thoughts, my opinions, and see what all is going on. Good morning, Stephanie. Are your kids still sleeping in? I hope. Jackie says that she's trying to finish her last puzzle mystery quilt from Cotton Cuds, still 2 months behind. I have all of the blocks done from the last puzzle mystery. Oh no, I take that back. The one block where they were missing 2 pieces from my sisters, I still haven't gotten done. I got the pieces finally, but I haven't gotten them done. And then there was that one block that I didn't want to finish putting together until I knew which direction the cute little octopus was going to go. So I do have to get those put together, and then I can finally get them laid out. But putting together the puzzle mystery quilt is a lot of effort because it's not just sewing rows together. I mean, it is sewing rows together, but it's not the same block style that we're accustomed to when we're building out blocks. So when I did the puzzle mystery quilt in Dahlonega at Stephanie's retreat, and as I was putting the rows together, I brought everything into my bedroom because my bedroom was off of the, I'm going to call it classroom, retreat room. And I was just laying things on the bed and making sure I had everything else. And so I was going back and forth between the bedroom and the retreat room, just because there was so many pieces and I need to make sure that everything was right. Stephanie says she didn't make it before Sean's live was even over. They wanted mommy. Henry hasn't left her side since she got home. Oh, poor Henry. Because you were gone several days and then you had an adventure in the airport. Yeah, I. Then again, I was reminded, I think it was 5 years ago today, I was heading home from Massachusetts. And that was the year that I flew from Hartford to Tampa to Atlanta because apparently that's the proper way to go. And I had just missed my connecting flight from Tampa to Atlanta due to storms in Hartford not letting us take off. And yeah, basically I could have driven home in the time that it took me to fly home. But it was what it was. So what I have here now is I have all of the blocks, and I'm just going to do a quick finger press, and I'm going to finger press them in opposite directions. So this one I'm going to go to the right. This one I'm going to go to the left. Then to the right. This one to the left. I've got my iron heating up so I can get them in there. This way finger pressing will give me time to let it heat up. And doing these in opposite directions means all of the seams will nest. That's one of the keys to, trying to make sure things are flat is get things to nest as much as possible. And to the left. See how much I can get pressed. And because I didn't snip between each row, everything is going to stay where I had it laid out. I don't have to think. The other thing that you could have done is if none of your fabrics are directional and you didn't particularly care where anything ended up laying out, you could have just made a whole bunch of circle blocks. Here's the pattern. So if you just laid everything out as a circle, a circle, a circle, and just made sure all your seams were spinning the same direction. Okay, I can only get so far before I ran out of room, so I'm going to sew a couple of these rows together. So like I said, they're still stuck together with the thread because I did not break thread. Lay them out together. The other awesome thing that happened on Wednesday evening, I was looking at quilts and I heard somebody behind me say, "Excuse me, are you O.V. Brantley?" And she said she was. And I was like, I know that name, I know that name. And then when they were done chatting with her, I turned around and said, "Pardon me, did I hear you say that you were OV Brantley? And she looks at me and says, yes. I say, do you have like a daughter, a niece, or somebody who is named this and works at this place that I work at? And she's just looking at me like, yes. So I was like, yeah, she told me so much about you and everything. I work with her and all this other stuff. I used the wrong last name for her because she did. I, I've worked with her for 700 years. It feels like, and I used her maiden name instead of her married name. It's like her stepmom, and she goes, I would have figured she'd be using her married name at work. And I was like, oh yeah, it is my married name. Like I said, I've known her forever. She does some incredible work, and I was excited I could finally meet her. My coworker told me about her probably back in December or January. And I asked if she was going to be at QuiltCon, and she was like, I don't know. But I was like, well, let me know. Uh, I didn't even ask if she went to QuiltCon and stuff, but I got to, have a 2-minute conversation with her to say, hi, how are you doing? Definitely a fan. I'm going to put this last one on before I press some more. The size of this, it's a little unmanageable with the thoughts that I had, but I'm making it work. And once I got the stitching done, I trimmed the thread that's holding everything together. Line up my seams that need to line up. And honestly, once I line them up, I just stitch and pray that they stay lined up. But because they are nesting, they tend to stay lined up a little bit better. I'm doing fairly okay on my thread in my bobbin. So as you see, I've got 2 blocks of these put together. Really needs to be ironed. But if we take a look at the back, I can spin all of these seams because everything is going the opposite directions, which helps for a little bit flatter of a quilt. So I'm going to start from the other side ironing. Shouldn't do that because then I can end up messing up. Because every other row goes the opposite direction. Actually, if I say no, I'm not going to risk it. Should be finger pressed, but apparently it's not. Okay, so this one is going this way, so I want this one to go this way. The slightly easier thing to do with this is have a design wall. Take a picture of your blocks as you have them laid out. And make sure you don't shift from your design. But we don't always have a design wall. So is anybody working on any fun projects, I hope? I saw Stephanie and Shannon started an awesome Alice in Wonderland FPP project last night. That's going to be exciting for them. I saw the blocks and they look so much fun. And it sounds like I am being taken off of a project that some neighbors wanted. Uh, I haven't had time to start it, and they've I guess they got a little. They're getting a little antsy for it, and I'm like, I haven't had time. Work is crazy. Most of the time that I've had the past couple weeks has been basically this time that I'm sharing with you in here, just because of everything going on. And I'm just like, I haven't had time. Honestly, I was hoping October at this point, but they're like, well, let me take the stuff back. And I was like, okay. So I got to get that returned to them. Stephanie says, we have a pie to bake. Yes, we do. We need to figure out when we will be baking that pie together. I'm not going to risk that bobbin chicken. What Stephanie is talking about is a bumbleberry pie. Let me pull the pattern out. She did a unboxing video of. Wait, let me do this way. Of this kit, and the pattern is. Come on. This is the quilt top, bumbleberry pie. I conned her into ordering it because she thought it looked gorgeous. I don't know why I popped that off. It's a kit that was sold by one of my local shops, and they have it online. And then there's a couple other shops that have it. And we bought the kits. It's also a block of the month for people who are more interested in spreading out the love of their money. And it makes it a little bit less daunting. So I was going to wait until Stephanie got settled back from her cruise and everything and say, when do we want to fit this into our calendars? Because I know she's got a very heavy calendar. So I want to make sure that whatever we choose works well with her calendar. Stephanie says, let's be real, I didn't have to twist very hard. I apparently have this effect on people. Because John from Guys Craft 2 has complained that, complained that I've convinced him to buy a few things, and Stephanie has now said it. You should see what I convinced Steven to buy. Although he's not going to get to use it for the method that I saw in the video until he comes down to Georgia this year. But he said he's going to be showing that off on Monday, I think. Like I said, with these blocks, it's a lot easier to think about if you don't have directional fabric and you don't really care about the placement of your fabrics. But when you're like, I want these to go this way and I want to make sure that everything is this way, especially because there's like 2 directional prints in here. That's the only reason why I'm doing a little bit more OCD about this. Stephanie says she's not complaining. I think John's doing the complaining mostly because he's trying to figure out how to retire. And if he keeps buying all these kits, that takes away from his retirement fund. Of course, if I started thinking like him and stopped buying things, I could probably retire like next week almost. Not really. But if I can get laid off and get a new job fairly quickly, my 10-year plan turns into a 2-year plan, which would be a lot nicer. And let me, think about retiring soon. I have a few friends who have retired. Like their last day of work was last Friday. Both of them. And I'm like, I'm kind of jealous. One of them, he does crafting and sewing and stuff. In fact, I purchased the family a Christmas present from him that's been still sitting in the box since January when they got delivered because it's for next Christmas. Because family listens to these, I'm not going to tell you what they are. But they're all going to love them. If you really want to know, you can send me an email and say, what did you buy? Make sure you say, what did you buy for the family for Christmas? Otherwise, I will never remember what I told you guys to email and ask. As I just realized, I'm not showing my sewing machine again. I'm sorry. Why does this software not know how to shift my scenes automatically? I've only got 2 more to go. Maybe I should like my own video. There. I've just increased the number of likes by 1. That's one thing that I have gotten into the habit of. With like, it's not even just my friends that I have on YouTube. It's even like the channels that I really do like watching that I have absolutely no interaction with besides liking their video. But when I start a video, I have a habit of just now going in and hitting the like button because I know it helps the YouTube channel a lot the more likes it gets. And even though I see it's got, 700 likes or 2,000 likes or something like that, I'm like, well, that one more still helps. I'm both happy and unhappy that they don't let you see who disliked your videos anymore. Okay, I've got two sides that I'm doing on. I I did joke when I got my first dislike. I was like, I'm a real YouTuber now. I got my first dislike. Honestly, I don't care if somebody likes a video or dislikes a video, it still counts as interaction. There was a YouTuber who proved that. They had a goal of getting the most disliked video out there on YouTube. So they said everybody dislike the video, not like it. And they shared their YouTube stats for that video. And it was basically the same as a YouTube stat that had the same number of likes. So I don't care if people like the video or dislike the video as long as they click one of those buttons. So I have the full row done. Let me quickly see how fast I can press this and we will start getting borders on. And all I'm doing for pressing is I'm seeing what the two seams that I have already pressed are going, and then I'm pressing the top and bottom in opposite directions of those. Or not opposite, same direction, so they're all going the same direction. And last one goes this way. I really want an ironing cam. But I just say that'll happen after YouTube gives me my first check. Whenever that tends to be. Okay. So I read these instructions, and they want you to add the top and bottom borders first before you do the side borders. And I went and already cut everything to the proper lengths. I am OCD about my borders, so you could have a little bit of a tip as to how I do my borders. First thing I do is I get them cut to the proper length that they're supposed to be. Everybody has their own opinions on how to determine that number. Because my piecing tends to be a little bit closer to accurate, I just end up doing the math of saying if I have if I'm ending up with 12-inch blocks and this is what it's supposed to be, I just math out what the block size is supposed to be, or what the border size is supposed to be. I know other people say you're supposed to measure the top, middle, bottom, and take the averages and do easing in and out. That one didn't work well for me because I guess when I measured, I somehow measured wrong. This was in the class. It still ended up coming out, but it didn't. So in this case, it told me to have a certain length, and if you can see that, it's like spot on where it's supposed to be. And that's what I do is I clip both ends, and then I find out where the middle is, and I line the middle up, and I put a clip. And I just keep doing middles until it gets to the point where I have enough clips in there. And if one side is a little bit looser than the other, so like if you did that average technique, and I'm just gonna say maybe your border fabric is like a 1/16 of an inch or a 1/8 of an inch bigger, or maybe your quilt top is 1/8 of an inch bigger, and your averages, because your borders help square up the quilt, then you can like go the opposite direction like this. So normally, like I said, I'm doing it this way because this is slightly easier, but whichever side needs to be eased in, put that on the outside and it'll help ease it in. And then when you're sewing, whichever side needs to be eased in, if you have a side that needs to be eased in, it's usually better to put that on the bottom. If it's basically even like this, it doesn't matter. I put where has the seams on the bottom, and I just try to make sure that all my seams are going in the correct direction. And I just had to make sure that my fabric is going in the correct direction because I did put something on backwards many times. And I just keep everything basically lined up and as close to even as I can. And most of the time you will not see me do borders on camera because I am very OCD about this, and there's a lot of finagling. There's not a lot of finagling when it comes to this size of a table runner, although I probably should have done a little bit more clipping here. So I'll just remember that whenever I do the other side, do a little bit more clipping than I did. If you see me doing borders and I'm on camera, it's because it's a super simple project. and probably something small. There are other people who are more whimsical with their borders and just grab a strip and just start sewing. Again, because I know your borders are supposed to help square things up, you want to make sure your borders are the same dimensions, otherwise they may not square up. I have evidence of that. I have it was one of the first quilt tops that I had ever finished. And I didn't know any better. And that's the excuse that I'm giving. I am thankful for the person who worked at the shop that said, "Are you sure you don't want to have a border on it?" Because it needed a border. And when I got the quilt back from quilting, from long arming, I had to, I giggled at myself because I'm like, I forgot how wavy this border was. It had been many years from when I completed the top from when it got long armed, so yeah. But I honestly did not realize how wavy the border was until I got it back from long arm. And I was like, I'm amazed that you were able to work with this. So yes, I just told on myself. And yeah, it was a learning experience. And I fault no one for their border methods. When one of the local shops was doing basically Saturday sew days, I watched somebody do a border, and she was able to do it the method, the willy nilly method. That I was just like, okay, you're just going to go ahead and just add the borders. And I asked her, I was like, how do you keep them from stretching and stuff? And she goes, I never have a problem. That's not the answer to my question. So she had it's just that feeling that she was able to have to know if the border was being stretched or not being stretched. If you watch Donna Jordan's fabrics for yeah, if you watch Donna Jordan's videos from Jordan Fabrics, she will do a bunch of sewing two strips together. This doesn't feel right. Let me make sure. Okay, it is. And she will say, make sure you're not stretching one side of the fabric or the other. So I'm assuming that the friend that would be doing the sewing, she was pretty good about making sure that her fabrics didn't stretch. And I have a coincidental matching seam right here. Did not plan for it to match, but it matches perfectly somehow. So as long as you're not stretching either side and that your patchwork piece is pressed pretty flat, then you shouldn't have any issues with your borders. My stuff isn't quite as flat as it should be. But that's what happens again. I'm live. I don't have a giant pressing station over here. I can't. So that's why I was like, if you see me do something Borders live, it's either something really small or something like super easy. And thankfully, this isn't a full size quilt, so I have a lot of room to let things just droop. Again, I have a camera right here. If I had a larger quilt, would not be able to do that on camera. That almost felt like that seam flipped, but I don't care. A little bit of magic juice and it'll be flat again if it did flip. That one I know flipped, so I'm unflipping that. So next week, I am probably going to work on the Saturday sampler block. I have been hunting for a free pattern for the next block for y'all. And as soon as I can find that, I will throw up a YouTube card for that. And then I believe the week after starts the Fort Worth Fabric Studio Halloween sew along, which I am pretty excited about. I ordered my kit and hopefully it'll come up in the next day or two. I haven't checked informed delivery in a minute. So I'm excited about that. They are doing it a little different this time. If you want to sew along from your stash, you have to buy the pattern. I am all for them saying, hey, buy the pattern, because making a pattern isn't cheap. I've started halfway writing a pattern, and just writing the words down is a lot of effort. And I don't even have figured out how to put pictures in there yet. So I'm like, yeah, if I was trying to sew from my stash, I would be happy to buy the pattern. But I'm buying the kit because that way I don't have to make decisions. It's a little bit more difficult for me to make a decision on fabrics if I don't know what it's going to look like. I have done one mystery sew along where I had to pick all the fabrics, and they said a light, a medium, and a dark, and I'm like, okay. I am not happy with the fabric choices. Mostly because I would have swapped the medium and the dark in my colors in order for it to look a little better. So when it comes to a mystery sew along, I would rather buy the kit. So that starts, I believe, the following. So in 2 weeks, I think. I'll have to pull up my calendar to make sure. Good morning, Colleen. I hope you're having a wonderful day. So the Fort Worth Fabric Studio is 4 or 5 weeks. Stephanie says June 24th is when it starts. Oh, so it's not in 2 weeks. So I got to figure out something to do in 2 weeks for the 22nd. I'll find a simple project for the 22nd, and then the 29th will be the first week that I sew with Fort Worth Fabric Studio. Good morning, Melissa. Okay, so I have the center pressed, and I'm looking for that seam that flipped, and I don't see it. Nope, I do see it. No, it flipped and then unflipped. No, it did flip. It flipped the wrong direction. Again, a little bit of magic juice, I can handle that. Stephanie has an idea of what we can do on the 22nd. I'm all ears. For the two sides, it's a simple cornerstone. And because these are going to be outer edge, I always lock in my, or I backstitch. And I backstitch both sides because I don't know which side I'm going to end up putting on the outside. Colleen said she had to do her Zoom exercise class before joining, so she's energized. Well, that is awesome. I've decided that if I can ever get a sewing room addition built on the house, which would be a lot bigger than this room, I would probably try to put this room as a exercise room or something. Although, again, it's a smaller room and I might hit my hand on the fan many times. So maybe that's not a great idea unless I'm doing stuff that is not jumping up and down. I've taken pictures at my sister's house where my head is above the lamp part of her ceiling fan. So it's a little dangerous being a taller person in the family. And then once I get this on, we've only got 2 seams left and this will be done. And I just locked my outside seams because it just gives them that little bit more security. Some people do a victory lap by just sewing like 1/8 of an inch seam. That's just too much work for me. And as I'm thinking about pressing, this is normally not what I would do, but I have no real other choices. These seams I press towards the border. So these seams have to go towards the border. You normally don't want to put a super dark fabric underneath a light fabric in case it bleeds through. But sometimes if you want your seams to nest, you can't. Most fabric nowadays is fine. And if you make sure that your darker fabric doesn't really go over the lighter fabric, you won't have that little bit of bleed through. And again, we will have nestification. Melissa says her son has the same problem. My best friend from college is 4'10", and I would constantly, make short jokes around her. It was great. This past week, there was a video that came up in my feed about, short people. So I sent it to her. I was like, this feels so familiar, and she lost it. It was basically like a short person would either the short person would toss something to a tall person, or a tall person would toss something at a short person, and it would obviously cut scenes between the two. And like there was one where they threw a teddy bear at the shorter person, and it ended up being a giant bear that the short person caught. And then there was one where somebody threw like a bench pressing weight to the tall person. The short person threw it to the tall person, and when it's going to the or rolled it to the tall person, when it's rolling to the tall person, it's just a little barbell. I was just like, that's hysterical. Last seam. And then I'll probably just, actually, I'm probably going to press these last border seams outward, because borders usually go outward. Especially since because there's more seams that you don't want to press to go outwards. Or, I'm sorry, you want to press the direction the fabric wants to go if you can. And in this case, it's outwards. Flip the camera. I know I need to press this, but I can do that off camera. Here's the table runner. A couple of things that I made sure that I did, just because I was being OCD about this, is there's a couple blocks in here that are directional. So like this one, I made sure that it was going in the direction so that if I was looking at it this way, that I saw it this way. For this, if I'm looking at it this way, it looks right. So whatever side that you're looking at it for the table runner, they look right. And then I try to make sure that the big hearts were just always going in the same side to side direction. The tossed hearts didn't matter. The flowers are tossed, they didn't matter. This was the other one. In fact, this block I had to repress because the directions that the seams were going would not let it fit anywhere in the block or anywhere in the quilt so that it would point in the correct direction. So I had to just flip the seams. It's just a simple press in the other direction, and that got it to work. So I am very excited about this. I'm going to have to find some backing fabric. The kit that we got has the binding fabric of this, so this is going to be fun. And when I can get Sunshine on My Mind quilted and then this quilted, I will have myself a spring and summer table runner. I also have a couple other table runners that have to be done from Fort Worth Fabric Studio from their subscription box. So yeah, and I also have I think we did a Christmas one that I haven't quilted. Now I know we did a fall one that haven't gotten quilted. So yeah, I've got table runners galore, and I still have to get my sister. She sent me fabric for a Pride table runner. I may whip that up tomorrow real quick and hop that off to the mail so that she has it for at least a portion of Pride. Since it only takes me 45 minutes to do a 10-minute table runner. But I am rambling enough with my shenanigans, and I want to go see the quilts again and go to have fun speaking with the vendors. Probably not going to buy anything at the vendors because they're all local, and if I can buy it locally from them, why am I going to force myself to buy something spontaneous at the show? So I'm just going to probably be talking to them and just saying hi and all that. But definitely I want to see the rest of the quilts. I want to get photos of all of them so I can share them with you. I haven't decided if I'm doing 1 or 2 videos because probably going to be 2, maybe 3. 300 plus quilts. We'll see how many photos it is. But it's already, like I said, it's an awesome show. If you're in the Metro Atlanta area, you should come see it. It's at the Cobb County Civic Center. If you're not in the metro area, like I said, I will have photos of it. Definitely won't post until after the show's over because that's the point of having the show is you go see it. You don't see somebody else's experience of it. I did the same thing with QuiltCon. I think I waited until QuiltCon was over before I posted those photos just to make sure that people didn't have the opportunity to see quilts that they could have seen in person. So I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. If you can go to a show, go see the show. If you can't, like I said, you can wait for videos and stuff. Check out all the YouTubers who are live today. I'm probably going to miss Stephanie's live this afternoon because I got to get food in me and I got to watch the show, and quilt pickup is at 6 o'clock. So I may be watching from the car or from my headset or something like that just to hear that. Definitely will watch her replay because I want to hear all the exciting stuff about her quilting crew. So hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.